All right, so part two of this episode, going back to the Dragon Reborn, and Sam's gonna take it since Matt's his character.
Well, take me along the chronology, and then I'll talk
Mhm.
more about him because
Well, when we left off with him being healed, and now uh he's he's waking up, and there's already immediately some weirdness because it's no longer just phrases, but he's full on speaking the old tongue.
well,
Uh,
I guess, in his waking, he's coming out of a dream where he was actually in Manatharin during the Trolloc Wars.
mhm.
So he's actually seeing this happen.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I think what we're to take here is that the words were only sounds, yet they sparked something. And then he has kind of a waking dream, but it's more than a dream. It's a memory of a past life.
mm-hmm. Well,
And
and just kind of historical context here with Matt specifically. We go through the timeline. Shadow Logoth takes the dagger, gets sick, gets the dagger I guess, separated from him, but not fully healed. So he's still attached to
mhm,
it. Dagger gets stolen and he goes a long time without it, finally gets it back, and then goes into this sickness again. And so there's lots of holes in his memory from this time because he's basically out of it for half of the series so far.
mhm.
Whether it's a walking madness or being out of it on the litter coming back. So and something seems to have taken its place.
Yeah. Um, and then he is immediately matting it up, looking around for and this scene always makes me hungry. Uh, uh looking around at all the wealth around him, thinking it through and trying to figure out how to uh work everything out to his benefit. And also a big part of that is not wanting to be tied down, and not especially not having Aes Sedai strings on him. So he immediately is thinking, all right, this is the White Tower, how do I get out of here?
Yeah, and it's kind of like the way he comes out of this is like after a really, we'll call it intense night out, and you wake up and your clothes are everywhere, and you're trying to piece together the
Mhm.
moments of the night uh, as you're hungover, and he finally gets to one point where he just like, oh shit, I blew the horn of Valir.
Yeah.
That's real. I think it's
Mhm.
not part of these memories. That's something I just actually did.
And that is a big deal. He doesn't know yet, but he's about to be told that he's bound to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he just uh I don't think he doesn't want anyone to know that he did that at this point, simply because he doesn't want to be part of all this, whatever this is. And I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
he he only kind of vaguely even knows, but he wants to go his own way and do his own thing. Um, Also, for those following along, the chapter icons all mean something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the next chapter icon is the crescent moon and stars of a certain someone, a certain lovely someone. And here Matt is gaunt and emaciated and naked.
Gaunt, emaciated, and naked. Well, at least his skinnier legs will make other things look bigger.
uh,
But
did you
but what was that?
did I send you that meme about with Thanos of you've been crushing leg day, but which is great, but now your penis looks smaller. A small
I have
price to
seen that
pay
one.
for.
I don't know if you sent it to me or not, but I've seen that one.
All right.
the
So
old the old Dave Attell line: "Is my penis that small or my balls that big?"
okay, so
As we digress. But
but Matt is the one who's going to make us go down those digressions every single time.
well, especially since what we know about Celine is it probably got bigger as she walked in, even though he was
Yep.
embarrassed.
So she does her thing. She tries to do her thing of um seduction and temptation. That's her thing, right? And so she immediately goes into that. But uh with Matt, she's able to kind of play a little bit of a different game than she does with Rand. She clearly knows stuff. We don't know how she knows stuff, but she clearly knows stuff because she tells him that Abel and Tam came looking for them, came to the tower looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
And are they going to tell you that? And so she's able to.
You mean Abel, the not drunk lecherous father?
Yeah, that's only going to get worse, folks, because we're actually going to meet him here before too long. Not in this book, but coming up in the next book, and it's.
For those that have only been following along the book part, it's it's my biggest beef with the show is they made one of the coolest dads in the book. This horrible person that traumatized his son.
Yeah, and it's he's able to make these father figures so well and yet so different. Tam and Abel are nothing alike in personality or in fathering. I mean, you can see it here in that first chapter where Matt is trying to think through how to come out on top, and he's thinking about his father and the horse trading tricks that he learned from his father, and how to how to come out on top. So he's thinking through those things, which are very different than the kinds of lessons that Tam instilled in Rand and the way Rand thinks.
Well, and also you kind of see throughout some of the books, both of those boys becoming their father. Perrin, you don't get a whole lot of insight into his parents.
Yeah,
but
because he's under the old apprentice system, which meant he had gone to live and work with Luhan. So Luhan, that's kind of those are kind of his surrogate parents, because since he was for a long time now, since he was young, he has been living with them and learning that trade as you did in that system.
And I'll get into more with Rand later, how he progresses to Tam, because it's actually what he's doing, what we talked about last time, what he's doing in this book here is kind of a little bit parallel to Tam, because Tam's the one that left the village. Tam's the one that went out and explored the world and then came back and was a solid dude. And Rand's kind of in that mode right now. It kind of a more intense version of it, but he's in that mode right now. And where Matt really doesn't want to be away from home, but he does want to see things. He does want to be mischievous. He does want to have fun and kind of get a little taste of something. But all in all, he wants to be home. And you'll see a lot of that actually. The more he gets out and about in the world, he kind of just wants to go back home sometimes. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, then I think the next interesting bit is kind of what makes Lanfear turn on Matt, or she goes from trying to tempt and seduce him to all of a sudden she gets kind of scary. Her smile hid secrets. This is 227 on the paperback. Her smile hid secrets. Just remember that there is another choice. You need not be a puppet for the White Tower or pray for Balzamon's dark friends. The world is more complex than you can imagine. Do as these Aes Sedai wish for the present, but remember your choices. Will you do that? I don't see that I have much choice at all, he said glumly. I suppose I will. Celine's look sharpened. Friendliness sloughed off her voice like an old snakeskin. Suppose I did not come to you like this, talking this way for suppose, Matron Cawthon. She stretched out a slim hand. Her hand was empty, and yet he stood halfway across the room, but he leaned back away from her hand as if she were right on top of him with a dagger. He did not know why, really, except there was a threat in her eyes, and he was sure it was real. His skin began to tingle, and his headache returned. So she's doing something funky to him, because she didn't like that answer. And she,
But
and it,
she's not used to hearing no, but she's heard
yeah,
no more from the Two Rivers boys than she's ever
yeah, and
heard.
she doesn't like it. And like we talked
Yeah.
about last time when we were contrasting the with Balzamon's attempts at temptation, is he uses whatever tool is at his disposal that he can. Lanfear has to have it her way. She wants to turn you, but she wants it on her terms, with her as the boss, and you doing what she wants, why she wants it, how she wants it. And so she turns on a dime. She is a very mercurial figure, and it's pretty apparent early on, and that's going to grow the more we see Lanfear, when she's, especially later when we see her as not posing as anyone else, but actually as herself.
Well, and again, you go back to those cluster B personalities. Control is huge, and she will use her sexiness and her temptation to do it. But as soon as that doesn't look like it's going to work, and you're pulling away, she's going to get you back in whatever way she can, whether that's blackmail or force or any means. Where Balzaman, he still wants the same thing, but he's so much more measured in his approach.
So then she runs off because she hears the people coming, and the Emerald and the Keeper pop in. I do like I like Jordan's magic system and the way it's grounded. I like that healing takes something of the body. So you need your own inner strength for it to work, and it kind of saps you. So here Matt has just, eaten enough for 4 people, and he's still hungry. And he's going to, as she just explains, he's going to eat like that for a week, before he finally starts to regain some of the strength that was pulled out of him in the healing. And we get a little bit of why this is, and I like that Jordan doesn't explain it, doesn't explain to you what's going on with Matt. He just tells you. So on page 231, he tells you how they healed him. Basically, my son, you carried that dagger for months. I believe we dug every trace of it out of you, but if we missed even the smallest spark, it could still be fatal. And who knows what effect your having it in your possession so long may have. Half a year from now, a year, and you may wish you had an extra day on hand to heal you again. So the corruption of Shadow Logoth had seeped into him, and they had to pull it out. And is like it was a metastasized tumor. Okay. And you're not.
I was just going to compare it to chemo and cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why he's the way he is physically, and that's what's going on in his mind as well, is that pulling out all of that bad tore out pieces of him as well.
The big difference between the cancer kind of parallel is when it comes to the physical damage to the body, and then the chemical basically elimination of the bad stuff throughout your body. That's pretty close to parallel. But when you're in chemo, you can't eat. You're nauseous the whole time. So it's you need to be eating like Matt needs to be eating, but you can't in large part. And that's why a lot of these you see like not focus groups, but people get together to go through something together. What would you call that group? Support groups. Group? Yeah, support groups do better because in the support groups, when you have other people that are feeling the same way as you kind of get that camaraderie that allows you to do the things you don't want to do because they're uncomfortable, like take your medicine and eat and drink water and all of those things that are needed with it, and you see a much higher success rate. The only difference is he's actually hungry. But other than that, it's almost perfectly describing the process.
Um, so when Amerlin has Leanne leave, and then she gets serious and direct, and that's when she tells him that he's bound to the horn. And also that if they had let him die, he took a deep breath. So long as I live, he said in a dull voice, and the Emerald nodded. You could have let me die, she nodded again. Then you could have had anyone you want blow it, and it would have worked for them. Another nod. Blood and ashes, you mean me to blow it for you. When the last battle comes, you mean me to call heroes back from the grave to fight the Dark One for you. Blood and bloody ashes. Would you prefer the alternative? You want me to blow the horn? Then I'll blow the horn. I never said I wouldn't blow the horn, did I? So I love this exchange because the Amarillin like nails his character right here, early on in the series, and we're going to see this over and over. This analogy that she makes.
Well, this and the end of the last book, so put them together.
Mhm.
The end of the last one where he's like, nobody says it can't be blown now. It's just got to be there, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's like when the waitress walks up with the shot tray, and you're like, sure, why not? And then the next day you're like, oh God, what did I do?
I blew in the horn of Valir. Oh dear.
Yeah.
So page 233, the Amarillin gave an exasperated sigh, and you should, if you've read the series and you like Matt, you should know this scene just immediately because it's great. You remind me of my Uncle Huan. No one could ever pin him down. He liked to gamble too, and he'd much rather have fun than work. He died pulling children out of a burning house. He wouldn't stop going back as long as there was one left inside. Are you like him, Matt? Will you be there when the flames are high? I'm no hero. I do what I have to do, but I am no hero. Which is a recurring theme. Go watch those. I've referenced them before, but go watch those interviews from the guys, the actual veterans from the show Band of Brothers, and that they all say that, and yet they all did heroic things. It's no, that's exactly what a hero is, Matt. That's the Uncle Juan continually running into the burning building when people tried to stop him, because so long as there was one kid left in there, he wasn't going to stop.
Yeah, Robert Sapolsky talks about this a lot too when he talks about heroic deeds. Because his big thing is altruism and behavior, and that's the common thing when you interview someone who did something like that. Is what were you thinking at the time? They're like, I didn't think. I was just doing it. I didn't even know I did it till I was done. And that's where the limbic hijack of your system can be beneficial, right? Can be pro-social, where in most cases it's the other way around. But yeah, it's the natural phenomenon, and Matt's like the embodiment of it. But you have to have that already in your character, right? Whether it's nature or nurture, and I think we get a little bit of both with Matt, because he does have a good role model in his father.
Yep. Darn tootin'.
But it's also that country bumpkin raising, where yeah, he does want to skirt the rules a little bit, but he also is respectful. He tries to be respectful to especially the females throughout the books, even though he hates it in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that Southern. Of course, Jordan was what was he? Carolina, one of the Carolinas.
Yeah,
he went to the Citadel. I know that. But yeah, it's that Southern honor culture, which is, I mean, we're familiar with it because we kind of grew up here. But for the rest of the world reading this, that's exactly what it is.
You say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You hold the door. You wave at strangers as you drive by on a rural road. It's a weird thing, but it is what it is. Well, I'm not sure how to talk about the next few chapters without getting spoilery.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything that has prophecy in it, it's going to be
Yeah.
on the verge
So
of it.
there's going to be some interesting things here, but really we're kind of getting the setup with uh chapter 21, World of Dreams, and Verin is going to explain professorially to Egwene what the World of Dreams is. So we're finally going to we've gotten bits and pieces of it through the series as it's been touched upon, um, mostly by Perrin at this point,
Mhm.
on accident. And then Egwene has had the kind of prophecy-like dreams. But now she's actually going to find out that there's more to being a dreamer than just those prophecy dreams. In fact, much more. That's only a small part of it.
Hmm. Yep.
And her explanation, I think, lends itself to kind of what you've been talking about the world of dreams and it being kind of a nexus between various things. And then that's how she describes it, is kind of in between all of these other things runs this one constant, which is the world of dreams.
And also, uh, we, I don't know if we learn it here or not, but it's not really a spoiler to say that also with the world of dreams, it is something disconnected from the power. Because we've talked about that with the ways as well. It's something disconnected from the power because yes, you're more likely to be able to access it if you have access to the power, but it is not something that is 100% necessary. We see that with Perrin. Right.
Yes.
He has no connection to the one power, but he has access to the
And the Tara Griel that Verin gives her eases passage to the world of dreams, and it doesn't require channeling. You just have to fall asleep with it touching your skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would work for anyone. I love this chapter because Verin's such a great character, and she's kind of alternatingly seemingly scatterbrained, and then very very serious and to the point. But then there is some weirdness here. Where is it? At the very end of the chapter. Which I don't even know how to speculate on it, because I don't know that I've ever figured out what's going on here at the very end of this chapter, where it switches to Verin's perspective.
I'm reading through it real quick.
Yeah. So kind of the last thing Verin shows her before she sends her off is a big scar on her arm that couldn't be healed properly. She got it in the world of dreams, and when she woke up, she had this huge gash on her arm that she had to have another Aes Sedai heal, and it left a scar, which it's not supposed to do. When healing is complete, there are no partial measures with the way Aes Sedai heal. It's an all or nothing thing. So Verin's trying to impress upon Egwene the very real dangers in the world of dreams, using her own example. And yet, there's more to it that she could give Egwene. She has these notes from Corian and Nadil, who was the last Aes Sedai who made an effort at studying dreaming. And she has these notes. And she doesn't give them to Egwene. And once again, she considered burning the manuscript, just as she had considered giving it to Egwene. But destroying knowledge, any knowledge, was anathema to her. And for the other, no. It is best by far to leave things as they are. What will happen, will happen. She let the lid drop. Now, where did I put that page? And then
So that's why you say seemingly scatterbrained. I think she is.
Yeah,
because we get a taste of it from her own mind.
That's why I love this chapter, because there are times where it seems like she's using the absent-minded professor as a guise, but then no, she actually is an absent-minded professor. So you can never tell when is she using this to try and lull someone? And when is she? No, actually, yeah, she
Well,
just got
now
distracted by something
let's
interesting.
keep gathering evidence as we go on why I think the world of dreams is this hub that where all of these crazy things happen when it
Mhm.
comes to the pattern. And we go back to the final battle in the Great Hunt, and Rand gets jabbed in the side
Mhm.
and has a scar that cannot be healed.
Mhm.
Completely.
Yeah, there's something, and I think the surface level thought there is supposed to be that it's because of whatever the funky staff and power that Balzamon had that he stabbed him with. But then I think the next layer here is what we're learning here, which is, wait a minute, that might have been part of it, but maybe the bigger part was where he was when he got injured, which is he wasn't in the real world.
Well, and was Perrin warned by the wolves yet about the world of dreams, dying in the world of dreams?
No.
Okay, so I won't spoil that.
Yeah, no, he's when we left Perrin, he had just learned about the wolf dream,
And
about kind of
he
the world
just
of
introduced
dreams,
the Hopper.
and he just saw Hopper and realized that is actually Hopper. And he doesn't understand it because Hopper's supposed to be dead. So the next time we come back to Perrin and Perrin goes into the world of dreams, so now we've got the intellectual part of the world of dreams here that we're getting from Perrin or from Verin, and then from Egwene's studies, and we're going to go back to Perrin and get the experiential world of dreams as he has Hopper as his guide to take him through and explain things from that perspective. Um, which again is back to the lack of communication, because could you imagine what Egwene and Perrin could do if they ever bothered to talk to each other? Because they both know about the world of dream elements of the world of dreams from different perspectives, and they never put that knowledge together. But back to the end of this chapter, I have never been able to figure out, and I don't know that I've ever gone digging to see what other people think about this, short scene, just a few paragraphs here, and yet I've always found it odd. Um, why in the world would she both think of burning the notes and giving them to Egwene, but then think, no, what will be will be? It seems to me that she must have some sort of insight, possibly from her own wanderings in the world of dreams, or who knows what. It leads me to think that she has some sort of insight as to Egwene's path, the path that Egwene is going to go down here.
Well, that would have been a good moment too to maybe even reference back to seeing yourself in other dimensions, other lives that she had to go through just several chapters before in the previous book. So that might have been a good place to throw that in. Again, I think that moment should have been played out more as we went along with the characters that were there. It could have been one sentence right there, but she's seen what would happen if she did this or something like that.
Because it's, it is best to leave things as they are. What will happen will happen. So part of her, but then to even think about giving the notes to Egwene means that part of her either doesn't want what will happen to happen or isn't confident that what will happen will happen. But it's curious to me, and that's why Verin is such an interesting side character, because she always seems to know much more than anyone else around her, and not just because she's read lots of books. Right? She has incredible insight to those things that she has read, but she's also gone out and experienced lots of things. She's gone out and investigated based on that knowledge. As we see here, she found this ring and these notes, and she said, well, let's go check it out. uh, and found the very real dangers there. Do you have? We can't get too much into Verin because I mean, obviously, we don't want to get spoilery, but
Mhm.
I I've always liked this chapter and found the ending there a little confounding.
Yeah. Next we have Egwene's test,
Hmm.
and the past is obvious. It's Rand and Eamon's Field and blah blah.
Yep.
Uh,
And
then
she's married. She has a daughter with Rand, and she has to abandon them.
yeah, and this is the one I compared to the end of the film
mhm.
series. They basically took this first test and put it
Yeah.
from his perspective in the
Yeah.
film series. Uh, the second one is the interesting one, I think, because it's the battle scene in Andor,
Yeah.
and at the end, she gets knowledge that she could not have had from anywhere else, and so this tells you that there's something very real
Yeah.
about these where they're at in
It's
this.
not just coming from her mind
Yeah,
because she had no clue about this.
and then when she asks Sheriam about this, she basically misses step and is like, whoa, no, let's not talk about that now.
Yeah, you're not supposed to know that. It's a scary secret that we don't talk about.
But then you talk about how cerebral these people are in general. She's got to be the gears about got to be going of what in her, basically what they're theorizing is probably some sort of prophecy in these rings, if they have any kind of interest in it. What in that would bring that into her test? You know,
Well,
what?
you skipped by something that's to me is really interesting, and I thought you were going to bring up because you were talking about the portal stone lives. And
Mhm.
this is very reminiscent of one of Rand's. That
Yes.
this fight
So
that happened in Camelin for some reason, and him fighting, him being trapped.
well, he also had the dream, the portal stone. He had two of the three there that Egwene has in the rings. The home, uh, they're married and have a kid and
Mhm.
everything. He had that one, and then he also had the fight. And we didn't see the third one, but Jordan might not have wanted to spoil
Yeah.
some things with that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had all three of these because they were alternate realities in both of their lives.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, so the second one is when we learn some bad juju about. I like the where when Jordan brings in, you know, things and doesn't kind of explains them but doesn't. Like this is one of the places that 13 being an unlucky number comes from.
Mhm.
You know, this idea. So you've got this unlucky number, 13 13 Aes Sedai, 13 Madral, and you can forcibly turn someone. And but also why 13, and we'll see that number pop up, you know, with relative frequency for different things. But then something weird is going on, and we know what it is, sort of, but yet we don't. Of why is something weird happening with the rings here? Because Alana talks about that buzz that she hears.
I forgot what it was if I knew what it was.
So one of them, I think it's Alana, says that the only time something like this, and I can't remember if it was here or if it was after the testing is all done, that the only thing even remotely reminiscent she could think of was a time where two Tarangreal who had similar purposes were in the same room together.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so somehow the rings are in some way connected to the world of dreams because you've got the Tarangreal, the dream ring sitting over there in the corner with Egwene stuff. And so that's what makes things go weird here. And Egwene has to use the power and similar to how Nynaeve did to force her way through and out,
Mhm.
and is almost lost in the rings.
Okay, so yeah, I missed that part when I remember the buzzing and all of that, but and I did assume it was the ring, but putting the world of dreams in this in one thing, because realistically, I didn't get this kind of connection with it until we started talking about
Yeah.
all of these.
Well, and in Verin's explanation, she uses the portal stone worlds, the what ifs, in her explanation of, there's a constant there too. There's a constant that connects the the main reality, the alternate realities, and these other things, and it's the world of dreams.
Bless you.
So the third dream is curious, and I don't want to talk about it too much, except to say, put a pin in this if you're reading it for the first time.
Mhm.
And remember this, because there are actually quite a few things in this third one especially that are going to come back up down the road. But I think the main thing to bring out of it for the now is when well, first, like we were talking about, the buzzing, the something going wrong is why this dream is so long, is because she gets stuck in it and she has to kind of force her way out. But then when she comes out, so at the beginning of chapter 23, is that all there is for me? She demanded. To abandon him again and again, to betray him, fail him again and again. Is that what there is for me? So again, all three of her dreams were alternate realities of her and Rand.
Mhm.
Even Nynaeve didn't have that through line in hers. Hers were all different. Egwene, so you see that there's that strong connection there.
Well, and like I said, they parallel each other.
Mhm.
Uh, in fact, in a lot of ways, you can predict a lot of Rand because of Egwene, not in her dreams or her prophecies, but what she goes through, he goes through later.
Yeah. And then to see the support structure they have around them, as well as their own personalities, you see a incredible disparity between their reactions, at least for a time. And I think so. I'm reading something now. So I meant to take my time with this reread. And instead I got sucked in because the stupid series is so good, especially early on. And I decided I'm just going to keep reading. I'm already on A Crown of Swords. I'm already on book 7. And so I'm reading for the fun of it. And then when we get to these chapters, I go back, I skim through before we record so I can say, okay, refresh my memory real quick. What were the main points here? Get my notes, take some notes, get my notes together. And so I hadn't thought about this as I did before. And there's some stuff that happens in A Crown of Swords that really jumped out at me and reminded me of what I said the last time we talked about this, the first part of the book, and Rand's reaction, the way he was acting, because he's a villain. That a big part of what forms Rand's worldview about who he is, what he has to do, is the fact that growing up, the stories of the dragon means that Rand, this well-meaning, good human being who just wanted a quiet life in the pastoral setting of the Two Rivers, suddenly finds out he's a villain, suddenly finds out he's a monster. And that's rooted deep within him. And you see that pretty quickly as you start to see Egwene and Rand's stories parallel each other, because Egwene is not. sure, there are plenty of people who think Aes Sedai are villains. Egwene is not one of those. She is purposely setting out to be a heroine. She is purposely setting out to be something good and powerful and noble. And that is rooted deep within her.
Mhm.
And there's, because of that, her outlook is totally different from Rand's. Is there anything in this chapter that you want to bring up?
No, there's
Um,
something kind of at the beginning of the next one because we re-meet somebody. Elida is there in this process.
Oh yeah.
And this is something that, again, I didn't notice first couple times reading through, but now that we're in this deep examining mode, well, we're going to get a lot of her later.
Mhm.
And not necessarily in the positive way, but in this moment when Sheriam says that she's okay, Egwene's okay, Lyda lets out a long breath of concern and it goes to finish the process. So she is human. She is,
Mhm.
concerned in this moment. And I think that's kind of important because we get a lot of negative later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we'll go through the process of what happens to get into that mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this moment, Egwene's in us. She's one of our children, and she's okay. Whew. All right, let's do this. Okay. Other
All right.
than
Now, do you want to stop it there, or do you want to talk about the next chapter? Because we're getting to the point here where there's going to be kind of a second section to this bit in Tar Valon, where because there's a second section of leaving Tar Valon, and that's kind of what everything else is heading towards.
uh
Well, let's talk about this chapter and end it here because it's a good
24.
and yeah.
Yeah, because I
So we're
think
back to
we
Matt
can
here.
we can still split what you were talking about and still have this chapter in here. So Matt goes exploring, and what are the main points you wanted to talk about on that?
Well, so we get more of God, this stupid series. I wish I'd never watched it. This is a great example of how Matt is supposed to be when he's you know putting on a smile and being casual and friendly with the guards and with people, just try and get the lay of the land and figure out, all right, how am I going to get out of here? What exactly were the orders that went down to the to the gates? Am I going to be able to sneak my way out of here? And the Matt we see in the series is absolutely nothing like this. I don't think we ever get a glimpse of jokester, prankster, gambler, Matt's the kind of character who is everybody's friend in that he's able to be friendly and disarming with pretty much anybody. He's a very lighthearted individual. And that's what we get here in this opening, and this opening bit of this chapter when he's going scouting around and when he goes to talk to the guardsmen. We get that and how he uses that, practically speaking. And then we have another encounter with Elsa Grinwell.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Yeah.
Before we get to the last half of the chapter, which is him finding the wannabe warders training, training with practice swords, and he meets Galad and Gawain, and hilarity ensues.
And as you said, his gambling streak begins. Because he's in this place where they're practicing to be warriors. But as soon as that wager comes along, he's kind of like, well, maybe I will do it.
Well,
what can go wrong?
Well, no, because what really sparks it is their dismissiveness. He's not bragging. He's just saying, I'd just rather have a good quarterstaff. It works for me. My dad wins at Beltane every year, except for sometimes when Tam wins, and good. It's good enough for me. And he's just speaking matter of factly. He's just making conversation, trying to be friendly, and they look down at him dismissively, and that sparks his stubborn streak.
Well, yeah, and there's a. So we've got Matt that kind of becomes noble, or not Rand that kind of becomes noble. Perrin that fights at every step of the way, but Matt is actually kind of what would be the term I'm thinking of, like despising of nobility. So he's actually, you look down on your nose at me. Sure. Let's see how it is. Where Perrin would have just been quiet and walked away and been like, I don't want to be like that. And Rand just kind of fits in with them.
And now Matt is going to double down. I was just making conversation, but screw you.
Well, there's also an important little nugget in there. He talks about his dad being the best at the quarterstaves, except for Tam. And then we know things about Tam and how good he is with weaponry. And if Abel can best him most times, guess who probably taught Matt how to do it as he's growing up? So, because it's obviously a sport in the Two Rivers.
Yep.
So we've got someone who's the best over someone who's pretty damn awesome teaching Matt. So you're not getting a blank slate here, grabbing the quarterstaffs.
I like that Hamar Gaiden, the warder trainer, steps in and he's got that kind of that knows more than he's letting on look to him, and he's the one that kind of pushes the boys into accepting the wager, because he's expecting a lesson to be learned here. And I've said it before, and it's hard to write action, and Jordan does a good job in this scene of really laying it out so that you can see it cinematically in your head as it would play out. The fight between them, and you're getting a glimpse here of what's only going to grow in later books, and there's quite the little cottage industry of arguing about who's the best fighter in the series, notwithstanding the one power, but just pure martial prowess. And there are quite a few people who say that it's Matt, and you'll see why in subsequent books. But here he's taking on two swordsmen that are not just, I mean, keep in mind, here you have two princes. So they would have already received a good deal of training before they came here to train at an even higher level. This isn't just them training. This is them, graduating and going to the next class. And that's what they're doing here. They've already would have had a good deal of training. And he's able to best both of them while he's pretty sick.
Well, in fact, it even plays the sickness into it, he's like, I got to get this over with.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a story like that. So, because I don't know if we brought it up in the Wheel of Time series. I used to be a mixed martial artist, mediocre at best. I ended up with an even record, but I always won in Mexico. I never lost in Mexico. And one of the times I was down there, we had wrapped up, we'd done everything. And, you know, you're so kind of mentally in a lot of spaces before you walk out that I was halfway out to the ring and I was like, oh shit, I didn't pee. And I got to pee really bad because you're trying to stay, you just cut weight the day before. So you're guzzling water all day long and trying to get hydrated and filled back up. And I was like, man, I got to pee really bad. This has got to be quick. And that one I won in about 90 seconds. I won that one in about 90 seconds. And part of it was, I'm going to piss my pants. And so he's in this fight going, man, I'm getting weak. I'm getting hungry. I'm tired. Let's end this now. And that's when Galad's coming at him and actually taking him seriously, which is the second half of that fight. Because the first half was, oh, I'm just going to win easily. And then, oh crap, he's got some skills. So now I got to show my skills. And Galad being probably on the list of best fighters in the, in fact, I would say by the end, he probably is the best. But yeah, it's that moment of desperation from something completely random on the outside. But I thought that was a pretty good little.
Yeah. The other nice bit, especially the close of this chapter, is the one that then Hamar makes his point of who was the best swordsman ever, and his one loss was to a farmer with a quarterstaff. So, you know, keep your ego in check is what he's teaching his class here, and Gawain and Galad learned it the hard way. And then you get you get the amusement of Galad, the prettiest man in the world, and he's being surrounded by Aes Sedai and accepted, and you know, might come to his senses having been bonded by someone. But then you get this nice interaction between Matt and Gawain, and Jordan really making you like Gawain, really making him likable. That
which is again, I've seen the message boards, and apparently a lot of people hated him. And I'm like, why?
You know,
like,
just stay tuned, people. Stay tuned. But poor Gawain. We've seen a little bit of that in that his sworn duty, literally since he was a child, was to protect Elaine. Andor has always been ruled by queens, and so male children are sworn to protect their sisters. And he takes that very seriously. And we see it the first time we meet them in Eye of the World that they have a close relationship. They are siblings who are also friends, and they get along very well. So he takes that very seriously, and we've seen a little bit of that. We'll see a little bit more here in the next chapters of his concern for Elaine. But he either doesn't understand or won't accept or isn't let in on the fact that, well, she has her own thing she has to do, because she is more than just the daughter heir now. She is a would-be Aes Sedai. She is really training to do this. And so that's going to pull her away from her daughter heir duties. And that is something that is going to tug at Gawain. But until then, he's a nice guy. We meet a nice, likable guy here who, even though he is, you know, a prince and one of the more powerful people on the planet, really, as the prince of one of the most powerful nations, and he is a very affable, likable guy.
I think that's a good place to end it. Partly because I have a 3 o'clock client, so I gotta start getting ready for that. But yeah, I like both of the brothers there.
Mhm.
You know, Galad, as much as I think Jordan kind of didn't want you to like him too much in a lot of situations, he's a pretty steady dude,
Mhm.
you know. So, but yeah, we'll continue on with the second half of that journey outside. Uh, is there anything you wanted me to talk about with Matt up to this point? But
No, just, if you had any thoughts on his personality and his story, but
well,
other
I just thought there was important things because you brought it up even better than I could have about his personality really shining there. But I wanted to also talk about this theme that when we're going through the books and comparing them to the series, is that you don't just bring it. You know, Matt beat two swordsmen right there, but again, they alluded to his dad being the best, and the best over someone who we know to have a heron marked blade, right? So it's not that it's random. He's been doing this since he was a kid. In fact, it even did a good job in the fight scene in the book, uh, showing how these movements were natural for him. His
and
hand slid down the
yeah,
staff, and he turned and twirled and did
we
this.
we've also seen it way back in the Eye of the World when Tom was training them to be his apprentices. That was their cover story, and he was actually teaching them. And it's he comments on the fact that Matt has, quick hands. He takes to juggling right away.
Mhm.
So he
Yeah,
does
his
have some
his
natural
hand-eye
athleticism
coordination
too.
was through the roof. And I do that in the mornings if I have a late client or something. I actually juggle.
Never been
To
able to do it. I've
it,
never been able to.
I'm again one of those things, mediocre at best.
Mhm.
Which being able to do it is still above average. Uh, I think it's a good way to pass a little time and work on hand-eye coordination at the same time. So it's another reason why I guess I like Matt, because I do see a little bit of myself in him.
Mhm.
We're both a little bit flighty, but also we would do the right thing, I think, if the time came.
Yep. All
Anything
right.
else?
Well, that's a good place to leave it. Do the right thing when the time comes, and we will see y'all next time.
All right, see you next time.